Okay, hi, and this is Dr. Bardia Anvar with our newest episode of our podcast with Skilled Wound Care, Skilled Physicians Group, where we will be discussing issues related to long-term care nursing as well as physician life. Today, we're keeping it in-house. It's going to be myself and Henry Okonkwo, our chief medical officer, who has a very interesting background and also has been working with us for almost since the inception, was one of the founding fathers of our practice. He plays a lot of roles, just to let you know, and we'll describe him some in this podcast today. He has trained our physicians. He meets with all of our nursing homes. He is well knowledgeable in probably every aspect of medicine. He has encyclopedic knowledge in many, many areas. And we're very lucky that he is part of our team, and patients and other physicians just love calling him and asking him any question related to any aspect of medicine. And he has a wealth of experience. He's also written the book, The Wound Atlas, which is out there. How do you get the Wound Atlas? Amazon?
Yeah, actually just go to woundatlas.com and you'll be able to pick up the book. Easy buy.
Yeah, Wound Atlas, and it really is an encyclopedia of information. But the topic today is going to be work-life balance as physicians, and how we can achieve work-life balance working in the different areas of medicine that we are all accustomed to. So just kind of bringing it up, Henry and I are both going to be talking about our experiences in medicine and kind of where we've been. And let me just start with you, Henry. Tell us a little bit about your upbringing, where you're from. I think you have an interesting background. What were some notable moments growing up?
Originally, I'm actually from Nigeria, but I'm an immigrant as well. My dad came here to go to school, to go to USC, go Trojans, to go to grad school, and then we came soon after. And grew up here really focused on education. That was really the one common gift my dad gave all of us, and that was the gift of just wanting to learn and valuing the importance of education. So we were just sort of a family of kids who were always focused on learning and reading and trying to learn as much as we could about everything. And but as I was learning, as I was in school, I had a natural affinity for honestly everything, but really a core affinity for medicine. I loved science. And I was fortunate enough to attend 32nd Street USC Magnet Elementary School. And
Awesome.
so within the magnet system, and it was a math science magnet and also performing arts as well, I got the benefit of having full-on exposure to a lot of math and science and also visual arts as well. And so that really allowed me to hone in my desire to want to practice medicine one day in life. And so I got really just to have fun learning a lot about medicine and doing other things that I enjoyed, which was playing sports, because I love sports, love playing sports. Every kind of sport growing up I wanted to play, and was fortunate enough to, in one way or another, participate in, whether it's at the neighborhood park or in actual structured league play as I got older. And then from there, that really was the foundation for where I am now, which is just a core value for wanting to learn and being focused and valuing education and the meaningfulness of it, and what it can, and how you can use it to enrich your life and enrich the life of others. My dad is a teacher, so I think instinctively that sort of helped me understanding the value of not just learning, but sharing what you learn with other people, and how that helps enrich other people's lives. So in our practice, anyone who knows, one of my big things is just always sharing what you learn with other people, That way everyone can be just as good, if not better than you, with the information that you provide.
Nice. And Henry also is educating basically our wound certification course that we have. He does a live 3-day educational course, which all of our nurses really love. And it sounds like you got a lot of that from your childhood and your upbringing through your family.
Yeah, sure did. It's interesting. You don't really think about all those things as you get older, but you start realizing that a lot of the nurturing you got as a kid really does pay off when you get older, even though you kind of reject it or don't really think too much about it. But definitely, I'm a testament to that. I love learning and I love sharing it with other people. Anyone who's attended any of our wound certification courses or any of the conferences that we participate in, you'll see how we just love to share all the different things that we learn, especially in our line of business, which is wound care, medicine, and skilled nursing facilities. I think, as I think about these things, I find it, you have also a really interesting past as well. I think it'll be a great thing to share, and tell me a little bit more about that and let everybody else and let the audience know.
Yeah, my name is Bardias Anvar. I was actually born in Iran, and my parents, like Henry's, came to the United States. We first lived in Italy, and then I came to the Southern California area around the age of 5. I didn't speak any English. Yeah, that was interesting. One of the things I learned really quickly was that people didn't think I was very smart, especially my teachers, because I couldn't speak the language. So that was kind of an interesting thing. And for my parents, I think they were just trying to figure out life, and they had moved to 3 different countries. So I felt in my upbringing kind of on my own with schooling and being in school. To be honest, I was actually pretty bored in regular school. I felt like the material was really easy, and I wasn't really the best student in elementary school, and because I couldn't read words it took me a little bit later to read or whatever. I was really good at math and science, but that came later. So I just was kind of getting used to the culture of the United States, I think, early on, just kind of understanding it's a totally different place than the other 2 places I lived in. And English was my 3rd language growing up. I really enjoyed also playing sports, basketball, on the playground, and having friends, and just having a regular upbringing. Pretty fortunate. Nothing really shocking happened to me growing up. So I know a lot of people have had experiences. I wouldn't say that I've had a really traumatic experience growing up. I just think, moving obviously to 3 different countries was a big deal, but that was pretty much it. And and then I think going into junior high and high school, I became a little bit more academic, and I found coursework more challenging, and I think it was early on that I was interested in medicine as well. I was really interested in anatomy and physiology. I really found it fascinating to do a dissection or look at I would look at any kind of thing, a leaf, a plant, dissecting an animal. I thought that was just really, really cool in science class. And I think I knew early on that there was this thing called a surgeon, which goes in and does, rearranges somebody's anatomy pretty quickly, and you get great results for patients out of it. So I think even probably early on, I knew I wanted to be a surgeon, actually. I really didn't know what it meant other than, you get to do dissection and get to work inside the human body and really do something phenomenal. So I think that was pretty cool. That's pretty much my upbringing. Going from there, Henry and I kind of took a different path, but we're kind of in the same place. What was your education like after high school, Henry? What made you decide going into medicine and your education like?
Yeah, so after high school, I moved to San Diego from Los Angeles to go to do my undergrad at San Diego State University, and then from there go on to grad school at UCSD. Actually, I was doing a PhD program in cell and molecular biology. From there, moved on to actually go to PA school back here in Los Angeles. Went to Charles R. Drew University of Medicine and Science for that. Did all my training at Martin Luther King Hospital. And that really was sort of the catalyst to where I am now.
What was the reasoning that you chose maybe to be a PA versus NP, nurse, doctor, DO, all the other MD, DO, all the different...
Right. My story is a little bit unique because it wasn't intentional. Actually, it was completely by accident. It's because I after leaving the PhD program, I decided that I needed to sort of do something a little bit different, and but quickly get to an opportunity where I could get to start practicing medicine as quickly as possible, and stumbled across the PA route as an option. And when I pursued the route, I kind of like, okay, well, this is sort of a quick way to get there, and then potentially from there I'll just move on to med school and do that. But when I was done, I realized that I had an opportunity to pursue so many other things because there was this ultra level of flexibility where I could start seeing patients, I could practice in the different specialties that I was interested in, I could pursue extra training in different specialties, and so it really helped satisfy this extreme desire for me to want to participate in all the different multi-specialties of medicine.
And why did you choose medicine over, like, there's other careers where obviously you could quickly make more money, or, go into business, banking?
Great question. I mean, because I love taking care of people. I have an ultra passion for wanting to make people better.
And I definitely think that's true about you after knowing you for...
And
12 years, 11 years, yeah.
Right, yeah, just about 12 years now. And so I totally enjoy doing that and changing people's lives and enriching their lives. And in a very unselfish way, money is not a motivation when it comes to helping others do better. And healthcare is a great pathway to do that because you immediately can really help people that's in need of help and in need of their life, being changed quickly if possible. And healthcare really gave me that opportunity. It was natural for me. I love medicine. I love science. You were telling your story. It's so funny. I never realized sometimes how parallel our stories are. I mean, you're an immigrant, I'm an immigrant. I came here, young. I couldn't speak English when I first came as well. But I loved everything about science. I loved dissecting things like it was no one's business. And, but, in lieu of all that, it really just allowed me to express myself in my ability to really touch other people's lives. Because I grew up poor. I mean, one part of the story I didn't mention, after my dad finished school, we moved a lot as well. We had no money, and we grew up very, very poor, actually, and I'm the oldest of 9. So it's a lot of us. And
a lot of mouths to feed.
A lot of mouths to feed. And so, but, that's why school was such a big deal. My dad was like, you go to school, you stay focused, stay out of trouble, and you should do just fine in life. And, being able to take the path that I did with medicine and, quickly starting to practice medicine as a PA and then go on to specialize more in surgery, which eventually led to wound care, was just really almost like a natural pathway. When I first started, I thought I would just do this for a year and then from there move on and do medicine and go to med school, and then realized that I had an opportunity to actually literally fulfill all of my desires, and that's really learn everything I could in all the different subspecialties. So that's been the best part of it. And then now being able to obviously continue to do it in all the different capacities that I do now has made it just that much more enriching.
Well, very cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think for you also, as our stories are a little bit parallel, what then really pushed you from high school and into college to wanting to even go to med school? Where did you go to college and from there on?
Yeah, so I stayed local to where I grew up. I went to UCLA, and basically chose to go there. Actually, it's funny, when I was applying to college, really didn't know the system of applying to college, and I went to a private school actually for high school. I was fortunate to go there, and my parents didn't go to college in the United States, so they really didn't know the system of applications and all of that, so it was kind of myself applying. And I really didn't know a lot of the ins and outs of how to apply to a certain college, or I was fortunate. I had a pretty good GPA, and I got a very high SAT score. So it kind of worked out that UCLA didn't really read your essay if you got a certain score and a GPA, and you get in. And I'm not the best at writing essays and filling out college applications and stuff like that. And I applied to some, a lot of schools, Ivy League schools, didn't get in. And I think a lot of it now, looking back, is, I just had no idea how to write an essay for college or anything. I just kind of sat at my dad's typewriter in his a home office in the garage, and I kind of just wrote my college application, sent them in. I think I maybe didn't even go to one of the interviews or something. I didn't realize I had an interview.
Right.
And so anyways, I wound up at UCLA. I was a neuroscience major there, which I always was fascinated by the brain, and I actually thought I was going to be a neurosurgeon. So So I'm like, okay, this is cool, and I did a lot of volunteer activities at UCLA. I volunteered with this group, the Flying Samaritans, and we would actually drive down from Los Angeles to Mexico once a month and hold these clinics where we would bring doctors from UCLA, and the group is still there, and we would just hold these clinics for these patients that maybe wouldn't have access to an ophthalmologist or some kind of surgical subspecialty, or just even a dentist. We went down with a dentist one time. And I really loved the idea of helping people that were really, really in need. And wasn't really thinking about the money or anything like that. I was just I'm going to become a doctor, and I'm going to have this great life doing exactly what I want to do. And so that was that. And then I applied to medical school, kind of similarly to the way I applied to college. And I got into Mount Sinai. Very lucky to have gone to such a great school in New York. Had a really great experience there. And I'll never forget it. I was in my anatomy class, and we were doing the neuro section, and the neurosurgeon walked by, and I was like, hey, I want to do neurosurgery. Can I come and watch a surgery? And he says, well, sure. Why don't you first come to our grand rounds? And I'll never forget it. I went into the grand rounds, and I was sitting in the back as a medical student, and I saw the chief resident presenting to the chief of neurosurgery, and he just got yelled and screamed at and for not knowing everything about the case he was presenting and all of this stuff. And I was like, whoa, this is really, really intense. I'm not sure I want to do neurosurgery. Right. And so that's when I kind of started looking at other aspects of surgery that I could do. And so I finished Mount Sinai, and I felt like general surgery was great to go into, because after general surgery you get to do all these other subspecialties, or you could just be a general surgeon and you get to do everything. So I got to come back to the West Coast, which is extremely difficult to do. The spots are very tight to get accepted into, but I was fortunate. I got a general surgery position at UC Irvine. I love Southern California, born and raised here. My family was here, so I was excited to get back. And I did general surgery at UC Irvine, and I really love surgery, and I love the experience of being in the operating room, and that's what I think I wanted to do for the rest of my life is to be a surgeon. And what I learned in residency was that, it's tough. It's tough to be a surgeon. No matter what kind of surgeon you are, there are emergencies, there are calls in the middle of the night, and I mean, I had my fair share of getting yelled at and berated in my surgical residency, and, being told all sorts of stuff that, you're lazy or, whatever it is. And I'll never forget, when I first started as an intern, I came in to the hospital at like 4 or 5 in the morning, and I saw the evening shift nurse who was getting off. And then I saw the day shift nurse come on, and I worked that whole time. Then I stayed in the hospital. The evening shift nurse came. Then I stayed in the hospital. I saw the next day shift nurse come. Then I saw the next evening shift person come in. And then I got to go home. And that was my internship. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm sure surgery gets a little bit better than this. Like, I'm going to have better time. And I was young at that time, so I wasn't really thinking about family. I wasn't thinking about hobbies. Like, I had a lot of hobbies in college for sure, but still then I was pre-med, I was pretty focused. But in high school, I definitely was like on the tennis team, had a good social life in college and in medical school. A lot of that went away in my surgical residency. It was very, very intense. My whole life was this residency. If I came home, I was sleeping or eating, and and then it was kind of like back to work. And if I had a girlfriend or my wife at the time, she was with me when I was a resident. Like, I mean, she would definitely feel like she was second to my job, and but I loved it, and I thought that as a resident, this is what the life would be. And then I thought, and we'll get into this in a little bit, when I would be done with it and I get to go out and practice on my own, I could kind of make it whatever I want it to be, and I wouldn't have to be in this like situation. And for me as a resident, I don't think I fit in as well as some of the other residents. I wasn't like the golden child, because I would question everything. I would say like, well, why do we have to do it this way? Or why do we have to do it that way? Mm-hmm. One of the things that drove me nuts was like, well, why do we sit for 3 hours waiting for a surgery to start when the most expensive person or, the most needed person in the hospital is a surgeon, and we are sitting there in this like room, probably the size of this room, with a TV, watching TV, when we could be doing other things that could be helpful to patients, waiting for a surgery to start, an appendectomy or a cholecystectomy, because the hospital is just not equipped to start the surgery right away. And the patient, is waiting there in this like emergency room or in the holding area forever. Mm-hmm. And that just drove me nuts as a resident. And I think what we do in surgery is really, really important. And I'm not doing it anymore. I'm not practicing surgery, which was a big deal to kind of let go. And I sometimes feel like I'm not like, changing the world as a surgeon would. But, I really had a passion. I really thought that, the coolest thing about being a surgeon is that you see a patient, they have a disease, you come in, and you can almost in 2 hours change the patient's life. You can save their life. You can reroute their arteries. You can make their heart beat again. You can remove an infected organ, and their temperature drops, and they're right back at it, and they're fine. And so I think it's really the, of course I'm biased because I went into it. It's like the epicenter of medicine. But since having finished my training, I know that there's a lot of other fields that I think are very important, and I've really changed my whole opinion of all the other specialties in medicine that I had beforehand. I think we talk about education. When I thought I went to medical school, I thought, oh, well, surgeons are the only people that do anything in the hospital, and that's completely untrue. And, my personality has actually changed by interacting with so many great nurses and people. And it really takes so many people to take care of a patient. Even the person that cleans the operating room is important. I mean, so many times you can be a great surgeon, but if there is Legionella in the operating room, it isn't cleaned properly, the vents are not working properly, the AC doesn't work properly, your patient will have a complication. We don't even know about it. So everybody's important, and we can't have this attitude like only I am important.
Exactly.
So that's something I really learned after my training. In my training, I really thought like, the world revolved around us surgeons. And I think a lot of it was because everyone I interacted with that was a surgeon also thought the same thing. And so that's pretty much my educational background. Now kind of shifting focus after our education and training. You've done a lot of stuff in medicine. What are all the fields as a PA? I think what's cool is you get to kind of go and work in many subspecialties.
Yes.
And I know you have a list of them. Do you want to kind of give us the rundown on why you did what and what you did?
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to have a lot of awesome mentors from while I was in school and then after school that I was able to work with. And I always told my mentors, I want to learn everything. Everything you do, I want to know how to do. And, so I got the chance to work in very great places in so many different subspecialties. I started off in internal medicine, actually, when I was done practicing. And from there shifted.
So let's hold on. You were in internal medicine doing what, in the clinic, in the hospital?
No, I was actually I started off as a hospitalist. Actually.
Hospitalist, okay.
Yeah, I was the only hospitalist, only PA that was a hospitalist.
And where was this?
This was actually at MLK, Martin Luther
MLK,
King.
busy place.
Yeah,
and what were the hours like?
Crazy. I of course they gave me the worst shift, so I had the overnight shift.
And how many nights overnight would you work?
4 nights. So
4 nights a week.
Yeah, 4 nights a week.
Right.
And then we.
And that was when you were young and single and all that, right?
And working hard.
And now you're married and with children. And could you do that now?
Boys, no.
No, would you do? Would it be? I mean, there's people that are doing it,
of course, but I would not want to.
Okay. How was it then? Were you like, oh, this is great, I got to work at night?
Yeah, for me it was cool because I just wanted to learn and work. That was my thing. Learn and work. See as many patients as possible. The more complicated the cases, the better, and the more opportunity to learn and ask questions. And every patient made me that much smarter. So I was always excited about.
So you looked at it as like, this is great. I'm learning.
And I'm working. So it was fun. And from there.
So that was fun. Okay, next.
Yeah, from there I went to psych.
Psych, okay.
I did psych for about 1.5 years, actually.
Where were you doing psych?
Actually, at MLK, they had a psych hospital next door. So it was through the internal medicine group there I was able to transition over because they needed someone with internal medical skills to work in psych to manage psych patients. And then from there, I befriended the psychiatrist and was able to stay on and learn psych and manage patients in psych, and so that was fun.
Well, why psychiatry? Like, what?
Medicine just fascinates me. I
so
love the mind.
You love all aspects.
I love all
medicine.
aspects of it, and I love the mind.
Okay.
And the moment I had an opportunity, I wanted to dive in, and so I think my enthusiasm kind of just poured over, and it would allow, senior chief of medicines in each department to just sort of open up and say, hey, you know what? I see you're committed to this and you really want to do it. Let's move forward. They challenged me, but I was up to the challenge. And then later from there is really where I started to shift to surgery. worked in the surgery department at MLK, but unfortunately that was the time where they were transitioning and closing the hospital. And so that opened the segue for me to move over to St. Francis Hospital, and had a great mentor there, Dr. Edward Sims, and I worked in trauma and vascular surgeon there for a long time, actually. And while I was doing that, I then took, because I had, any time was free time for me, I took on extra work doing primary care. And actually, no, I'm sorry. I before that transition over to surgery, I transitioned to high risk OB.
High risk OB.
Yeah, with Dr. Ogunyemi, who was chief of the OB department at MLK, and then eventually also at Cedars at one point, and at UCLA. He was all over the place, but he was awesome. He was a great teacher. He mentored all the residents, and got to work with him for a while. And from there, is when I then transitioned over to surgery, and then worked in surgery.
You did some dermatology too, right?
Yes. There's so much, I'm forgetting everything. Yes, that's right. I did that and worked in derm because I had a friend who I went to school with who he only practiced in derm, and he was a great asset to me and mentor.
Cool.
And so that actually opened up the opportunity to do a lot more specialized derm, and learned a lot there. I had one of my mentors who unfortunately is no longer around, Dr. Coffey. If anybody is in derm, they'd know who he is. He's an awesome guy who practiced derm in the Crenshaw district in Los Angeles and South Central LA for a long time. And from there, then it was pretty much all became surgery and trauma and vascular surgery with Dr. Sims, and stayed there until near around the time where we met. And when we met, wound care was unique to me outside of the hospital setting, because wound care was something that we either only did in the clinic or we did in the hospital. And the nursing home wasn't so much unique, but the wound care in the nursing home environment was.
Yeah, we're going to get into that.
Yeah, so that was sort of a short version of all the different things.
Yeah, well, you did a lot more than I did, definitely, after training.
Yeah, so I had a lot of fun, and the best part of my practice is that I got to do all of it in the underserved community, because that's really where I grew up in, and that's pretty awesome, because
a lot of people leave that community right away.
I never left.
And they're in Beverly Hills working with a plastic surgeon, and you didn't do that.
I dug in deeper and was hyper committed. So that was what was the most gratifying for me, was I got to really do that.
Yeah.
So that was a lot of fun. We look forward to meeting people, and look forward to you listening to other podcasts that we'll have in the near future. And it's been a pleasure.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.